Congratulations, because if you clicked on this video, you are officially an NBA sicko, because the NBA finals are going on and you're more interested in ranking every single free agent in the 2024 free agency class. A free agency class that's not even that good. I'm confident, without even looking this up on YouTube, that no one's ever done this before. No one's ever ranked literally every single free agent in a class. So basically I looked through all the unrestricted, the restricted free agents, all the guys with player options, team options, and I narrowed it down to basically 100 guys, because most of the restricted free agents are not gonna leave. A lot of the unrestricted guys were two-way players. There was like 250 guys that actually could have been free agents, and I narrowed it down to 94 NBA players that are likely to enter free agency and that aren't two-way players. And yes, I'm going to rank every single one of them. And whenever you rank anything, someone has to be last. And unfortunately, the worst actual free agent in the 2024 NBA free agency class is Anthony Gill. Now, right now, I want y'all to tell me where Anthony Gill played basketball last year. What team did he play for? That would be the Washington Wizards. If you actually knew that, it's probably because you, for some reason, have watched a lot of Wizards games this year, or you saw him on 2K. That's the only reason you should know who this guy is. You ever go to pickup and there's a guy out there that he can't really shoot, passes okay, guards okay. He's not like especially tall, but he's just kind of out there. That's Anthony Gill. Like, he's fine, but he's like 6'5" with no discernible real skills. And if he's on an NBA team next year, frankly, I would be surprised. Next up on the list, I almost put him at 94th at last just for the memes, but I felt like he's actually legitimately better than Anthony Gill. That's the kind of video we're working with here. Who's better, Anthony Gill or Thanasis Antetokounmpo? I think we all know that even with maybe a little bit of skill you think Thanasis might have, he would not be on an NBA roster if it wasn't for his brother Giannis. He is the leader of the bench mob. He brings great energy. I respect and appreciate the energy that he brings to the game. Probably not an NBA player, so he is at 93rd on the list. 92 on the list, Luka, I'm going to say Semanchik. I know that this guy was, I believe, a former first-round pick, someone that I think the Spurs drafted. I probably should have done research on that before the video. But essentially, kind of similar to the other guys so far. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this part of the list. Just not that good of an NBA player. 91, Javonte Green, who at certain points in his career has actually been kind of decent, gotten some run. He just can't shoot. That's why he's at this point on the list. 91, Harry Giles, someone that I wish was better, but just wasn't healthy in the beginning of his career. Had some decent moments with the Nets when he did actually get some run, but even though he has a decent skill set, doesn't shoot the ball well enough in the front court to actually be a notable NBA free agent. 89, Taj Gibson, who basically has only been on rosters the last few seasons because Tom Thibodeau exists, and at whatever point they decide to stop bringing him back to the Knicks, he will not be on an NBA team, but he is a free agent if someone wants to pick him up. Speaking of veteran bigs that probably shouldn't be on rosters anymore, 88 is Cody Zeller. Cody Zeller is someone that has had a decent NBA career, but is just old at this point, not worth basically picking up. Once we get a little bit further into the list, I'll make sure you guys understand kind of what tier we're in. Right now, we're in the tier of these guys probably aren't going to be on a roster next year, and then we go up to like, hey, these guys actually have a chance to be on a team. 87, DeLon Wright, who actually had some decent moments with the Heat. I thought about putting him higher on this list, but I'm just a little bit nervous about ranking Miami Heat players as free agents because they always play better with the Heat than they do with other teams. So DeLon Wright ends up at 87. 86 is Chris Dunn, kind of a similar situation where someone that we kind of forgot about could really guard. He actually was pretty decent this past year. He probably deserves to be higher on the list, but if you want to start arguing with me about someone that is the 86th best free agent in the entirety of the free agency class, then that's fine. You can leave those comments down there and most likely get ignored. 85, Moses Brown, who is a basketball player. 84, Bol Bol. I'm just out on the Bol Bol experience. This is probably lower than he should be. Some team is probably going to pick him up because he still has an interesting combination of size and skill, theoretically. I just don't think he's all that good. He's basically just tall and can shoot a little bit, but he's not even that good of a shooter. 83, Bismack Biyombo, who actually bounced around to a couple of different teams, had some good moments, I believe, with Memphis this past year, but at this point in his career is just probably not a viable NBA player. 82, Goga Batadze, but I'm going to mispronounce names the entire video. I don't even know why I'm trying to pronounce them correctly now. He actually got a good amount of run with Orlando in the beginning of the season, and then once their front court got healthy, it was clear that he's just not someone you'd really prefer to have in your rotation. By the way, I'm kind of surprised that I know who basically every single one of these players are in terms of where they played this most recent season. If you want to play a little game with yourself throughout the video, try and guess where these guys played last year, what NBA team they played on. 81, Mo Bamba. Now we're getting a little bit more into like the, okay, everybody should know who these guys are kind of territory, right? Kind of basically like Bol Bol, can't really shoot, big, can defend a little bit at the rim, but not someone that's super exciting. I put Evan Fournier here at 80. Maybe that's too low. I don't know. He hasn't really been part of a meaningful NBA rotation in a few years now. Someone that I don't think teams are going to be all that excited about picking up. Maybe if you need some floor spacing, you're a team like potentially Orlando or something like that, but most likely not really going to be an option. 79, TJ Warren. I want TJ Warren to be good. I want him to be an impactful free agent. He just isn't anymore. Too many injury issues for him throughout his career, and even though he can score the ball decently well, it's just going to be really hard for him to find a role on any team. 78, Svi Mikhailuk, who actually is kind of a decent shooter. He plays for the Celtics now. Plays is kind of a strong word, but I put him there just because, like, hey, if you need floor spacing, he could be out there. 77, Tristan Thompson, who is kind of like Taj Gibson. Like, the only reason he's still in the league is because the Cavs wanted him to come back as like this veteran presence for them. Still kind of decent as a rebounder. 76, Isaiah Thomas. Again, don't really know why he's still bouncing around the league, but he provides that veteran presence, a little bit of a score as well. 75, Daniel Tice. Man, we're only like 20 entries into the video. Daniel Tice, solid rebounder, loves to get hit in the face and not really impact the game too much from game to game. He's there. 74, Garrett Temple. If you still knew that Garrett Temple was in the NBA, I'd be surprised. But now we get to guys that might actually be like semi-impactful on a roster. Like we're getting now to like, hey, these guys could be your 10th man. Really exciting portion of the video here. 73, Lamar Stevens. Guard a little bit, can't really shoot that well, can get to the rim some, pretty decent, maybe potential rotation player for you. 72, Dennis Smith Jr. Actually had a decent season with the Nets, played way too much. The coaching staff liked Dennis Smith Jr. a little bit too much for my liking, but again, one of those NC State guys. I have the shirt on. I mentioned TJ Warren as well. Love those guys. I still think Dennis Smith can be a potential rotation backup guard depending on the defensive matchups. He's just not a very good offensive player, unfortunately, but he can really, really guard. Lou Cornett, another Boston Celtic here on the list. He's like the 5th best big on the Celtics. That's all I'll say about Lou Cornett. DeAndre Jordan at number 70. Decent option, I guess. I would expect Denver to replace him with a better option because they're playing Aaron Gordon 40 minutes so he can play the backup 5 rather than playing DeAndre Jordan literally at all in the postseason. 69, Damian Jones. I've kind of always liked Damian Jones. I don't really have a reason for it. He's a good athlete, can rebound the ball well. I don't know why. There's just certain guys, right, that you're like, hey, that guy's really good. Why doesn't he play more? Damian Jones is one of those guys for me. 68, James Johnson, the best potential UFC fighter in the NBA. 67, Andre Drummond. Probably should be higher, honestly. There's going to be a few of these throughout the video where I'm like, why is this guy where they are? I'm ranking 94 players. It's not going to be the perfect list, right? Andre Drummond, still one of the better permanent rebounders in the entire league. I'm very confident that he is going to be on a roster. Obviously, has issues with free throw shooting. You don't know how much you really want him to be out there, but for 15 minutes a game, Andre Drummond can still be impactful. Probably should be higher on the list. 66, Cam Payne. Yeah, like we all know what Cam Payne is, right? He's been the same guy for the last couple years. Can't really shoot it that well, but loves to shoot it pretty quick, gets to the rim. I actually saw him at Summer League last year, just walking around, which was, I was going to say pretty cool, but I don't know if that's the right phrase. 65, Jetty Osman. I'm still in. I don't know why. There's no real explanation for it. I still think that he's decent. I still think he can shoot, create a little bit for you. I'm probably very wrong, but I still like him. 64, Jordan Nwora. Probably, again, should be higher on the list. If he can shoot the ball well, he can play. If not, he can't. 63, Mike Muscala. You can put him out there. He's going to make a couple of jumpers. That's more than you can say for most of the players that we've talked about so far. I'll be honest. This is probably just laziness on my part. 62, 61, and 60 are all players with the last name Morris. We have Monty Morris, who only is behind the other two Morris twins. Mark, the other two, only behind the Morris twins. We'll just call them the Morris triplets at this point. Marcus and Markieff, only because those guys have more size and theoretically are better from a matchup perspective. That's why they might be a little bit more valuable as free agents. Monty Morris, Good player, good little backup point guard, but not much more there. Shake Milton, again, just one of those guys that I still think is good, still think he can do something as a scorer, but so far has not shown it. 58, Patty Mills, veteran presence, can make some shots for you. Made a ton of threes for the Nets 2 years ago. Jordan McLaughlin, basically Monty Morris, but maybe a little bit better at 57. 56, JaVale McGee. Still think JaVale McGee can provide something for you as a defender, as a rebounder. Still someone I would like I certainly would rather have him than DeAndre Jordan on my team. 55, Wes Matthews. Can guard and shoot a little bit. Wes Matthews has been the same since he tore his Achilles a decade ago. Like, it's been the same guy the entire time. KJ Martin, 54. Again, one of those guys that I kind of like. I think KJ Martin can be a solid contributor for an NBA team over the next couple of seasons as he improves his jump shot. 53, Alex Len, the best of the random veteran backup fives that we've had so far in the video. 52, Boban. Probably not better than Alex Len, but I don't know. I still like him, so he's going to go 52. 51, Mason Plumlee, continuing our streak here of random white centers. Pretty solid still. Justin and Aaron Holiday. Clearly, I've done this again where I've just put the same guys back to back with the same last name. Justin Holiday actually played a decent amount and can shoot the ball pretty well. Aaron Holiday, just one of those kind of streaky backcourt creators that one game might get you 20 and the next might go 0 for 11. Haywood Highsmith at 48 probably should be higher because he's a legitimate rotation player. But again, if you're signing a guy away from the Heat, I'm just going to assume that they're going to be worse. It's kind of like when the Spurs were at their peak and you would sign away, who was the guy? Gary Neal? Went to Charlotte. I'm going to say that's correct. I'm not going to research that. I'm just going to assume that's correct. You sign guys like that away from the Spurs back then. It's like signing guys away from the Heat now. They're just going to be worse on your team than they were for the Heat, or in that case, the Spurs. 47, Gordon Hayward. That might seem low to a lot of people, but Gordon Hayward looked terrible in Oklahoma City. He's probably still going to get some kind of role on some kind of team, but I'm just not all that confident in it. Maybe there's a Celtics return for him. I'm not sure. Doug McDermott. Now we're getting to kind of legitimate NBA players. Doug McDermott, despite not playing a ton for the Pacers this year, certainly can still shoot. Najee Marshall can't shoot all that well, but he can guard, and if he makes shots for you, that can be kind of a key rotation piece for you, depending on how he's shooting. 44, now we get to these guys are definitely going to be in NBA rotations this year, and that begins with PJ Tucker. Probably going to be on a roster somewhere with one of these veteran teams and at least get some minutes. Kyle Lowry, same thing. Was probably too important for the Sixers by the end of the season, but still can give you something. Talen Horton-Tucker, you guys probably forgot that he was in the league, but he actually had a decent season. Someone that I think should get a decent contract. Patrick Beverley at 41, not a huge Pat Bev guy, but I do still have to acknowledge the fact that he can contribute as a rotation player. Lonnie Walker at 40. Scored pretty well for Brooklyn in the beginning of the year, then got hurt, and then just became Lonnie Walker again, which is a guy that's going to get up a ton of shots, not be super efficient, but can shoot a little bit, can score a little bit for you. Buddy Hield at 39, had some okay moments with the Sixers. I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, again, not going to research this. I'm pretty sure that this year was the first time Buddy Hield played in a playoff game in his NBA career, and he didn't make a three for the first 3 games for the Sixers. Then actually played pretty well. Anytime you have someone like Buddy Hield that can shoot the ball the way he can, you're going to want that guy on your roster. 38, Gary Harris. I only put him ahead of Buddy Hield because he can guard a little bit. Didn't shoot the ball well at all for Orlando in the postseason, but I still think there's rotation guard potential there for Gary Harris. 37, Spencer Dinwiddie. Didn't contribute a ton as a buyout player, but still is probably going to have a decent role in a team next year. 36, Tyus Jones, who's someone that I really like. The only reason he's not higher is just teams don't really want kind of set up backup point guards anymore. Another guy, by the way, that I saw at Summer League last year, I saw him in the airport. I was behind him in security leaving Vegas Summer League last year. Really nice guy. 35 and 34 we're going to put together here. Jay Crowder, Robert Covington. You want guys that are going to shoot 34% from 3 and guard a little bit, and on occasion they're going to go 0 for 8 from 3, and sometimes they're going to go 4 for 8. Those are your guys. 33, Thaddeus Young. Again, one of those guys I've just always kind of liked. He's probably too high on the list, but I think he can contribute in certain matchups for a team. 32, Xavier Tillman, probably too high on the list. I think he's 40 spots higher than Luke Cornett, and he's arguably not higher in the rotation than Boston's front court rotation. I just like him. Xavier Tillman has had some really good moments with Memphis. I think on a different team that might need some of the wider size that he provides, I think he could be good for a team. 31, Alec Burks, who randomly went off for the Knicks in the playoffs when they needed him to be a primary scorer. Probably should have played more for the Knicks. 30, Joe Ingles. I still believe in Joe Ingles a little bit as a creator, as a guy that can shoot, just kind of in a weird situation with Orlando this past season. He might actually return. I believe he has an option to return, or the team has a team option, one or the other. I still think Joe Ingles can contribute. Speaking of contributors, Jeff Green, still getting it done out there. Actually was decently important for the Rockets this past season. Wouldn't be surprised to see him return to Houston, or to be, of course, on one of those other teams that needs a veteran as a potential championship contender. 28, Taurean Prince, a little bit better version of the Robert Covington, Jay Crowder mold. 27, Reggie Bullock, a little bit better version of the Buddy Hield mold, except he can actually kind of guard and doesn't shoot nearly as well as Buddy Hield. 26, now we're getting into guys that I actually like. I could see these guys potentially finishing games for some teams. And that is Dario Saric, who was weirdly important for the Warriors this past season. Someone that can pass a little bit, can shoot a little bit. I think there's going to be a decent market out there for him. Really, it's just injuries that have slowed him down the last couple of seasons. 25, Royce O'Neal. Again, you want a 3-and-D guy that's going to occasionally make some shots. Royce O'Neal's a good option. Kyle Anderson at 24. I go back and forth on whether he's actually good or not, because I don't understand how you can be in the NBA and you can have such a non-athletic shooting form as what Kyle Anderson has, but still a good player. Actually guarded Luka decently well for Minnesota in their last postseason series. 22, Malik Beasley, someone that, again, maybe is a little too high on the list, but you can rank him and Jay Crowder and Royce O'Neal and all those guys that are going to shoot and defend a little bit in any order you'd like to. 21, Derrick Jones, who certainly would not have been this high on the list a handful of months ago, but has been awesome for Dallas down the stretch and in the postseason run. If he can shoot, he's going to play a ton for you because he can really, really guard, makes a ton of plays for you. 20, Nick Batum. Still getting it done out there. Maybe you think this is too high for him, but he's the most consistent shooter of any of the random 3-and-D wings that we talked about so far, and a good passer as well. Nick Batum is just still a good NBA player. 19, you want to talk about someone that there's no reason for me to like this player as much as I do. DeAnthony Melton. Can shoot, can score, pretty good athlete. I think DeAnthony Melton could be like a 6th or 7th man on a really, really good playoff team, which I don't know that you could say that about a lot of the guys so far. 18, Caleb Martin. I'm really intrigued by what kind of contract he's going to get. Again, one of those Miami Heat guys. You never really know how they're going to perform outside of that. Gary Trent at 17. Volume 3-point shooter, can guard a little bit, pretty solid. 16, Kelly Oubre. I feel like we're talking about a lot of Sixers right now. Had a really, really good season actually for Philadelphia defensively and can shoot the ball. But now we get to the top 15. We have covered, 70 players? The math's probably not right on that. 70 players, 80 players so far. Now we're getting to these are going to be coveted free agents. These are going to be guys that might make $15+ million a year as free agents. And that list begins with Isaiah Hartenstein, who honestly I want to put higher. I think he's really, really good. I just don't know how much he's truly going to get in this kind of free agency big man market. 14, D'Angelo Russell. I don't love D'Lo, but he has to be here as one of the better creators in this class, someone that I think is still going to get maybe $15+ million a year. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at 13. You're always going to want 3-and-D players like this. I don't know that he's actually going to become a free agent depending on his option. And if he does, Denver's certainly going to want to try and bring him back. 12, Tobias Harris, he has to be on the list. I know nobody likes Tobias Harris, but he's still a solid player. Has to be here, in my opinion. 11, Nick Claxton, who I think is really interesting given the situation in Brooklyn. It's kind of surprising that they allowed this to get to unrestricted free agency. Between him and Hartenstein, I think there's going to be a significant market from a handful of teams that might then shrink the big man market after those guys are gone. 10, Bruce Brown, who kind of had a forgotten season after getting the big contract in Indiana and then ending up now in Toronto. He has a team option for this year for $20 million, so it just depends on if Toronto can trade him or they want to decline the option, whatever the case may be. Still a very good player. Number 9, I think one of the sneakier, potential big contract guys of free agency is Malik Monk, who not only obviously can shoot the ball well, but actually did a decent amount of on-ball creation for Sacramento this past season and is an interesting possible addition for a team like Orlando that needs a little bit more offense. Jonas Valanciunas, I put number 8 as probably the best true big man in the entire class. We know what we're going to get out of JV at this point. In some playoff matchups, he's going to play 15 minutes. In other playoff matchups, he's going to play 30 and absolutely destroy a team on the offensive glass. We kind of know what we're getting at this point with JV. Number 7, Klay Thompson. I think there's a potential $25 to $30+ million contract offer out there for Klay Thompson still this offseason, which might surprise a lot of people, but he can still shoot the ball pretty well. And I think in a different situation where he doesn't have to create as much, where things are created for him, could still be a very, very good player, which brings us to the true top tier of the free agency class, right? The top 6 here. And that tier begins with DeMar DeRozan, who's still a very good player, but my concern, of course, would be how he fits into certain team constructs, especially if he wants to go and try and be on a contender. Honestly, at this point, I would just guess that Chicago is going to bring him back because that's what the Bulls do for whatever reason. Number 5 is James Harden. You might be surprised that he is at 5 because he actually had a really good season, but I just think he's going to go back to the Clippers, and I don't really see another team out there that is going to be super excited about bringing him in, whereas the other 4 guys on the list, teams would be falling over themselves to try and sign those guys. I don't think that would be the case with Harden. 4 is OG Anunoby, who I think the assumption was going to return to the Knicks. I don't know if that is the assumption anymore, depending on what some of these other teams' free agency plans are. Obviously, OG is very good. 3, I put LeBron. I don't think that teams would prioritize LeBron over the other 2 guys remaining on this list as a guy that's basically 40 years old at this point. Obviously very good, but I would presume he's going to return to the Lakers. 2 is Paul George. Maybe you could argue that LeBron should have been over Paul George, but I think there's a real possibility of him going to Philadelphia this offseason. There's going to be a real market for Paul George on a max contract despite the injury stuff. And then the best free agent in the class, in my opinion, is Pascal Siakam. We saw what he could do in the postseason. I think that if you just put Pascal Siakam and Paul George out there in front of teams, I think more teams would want Siakam, and he is the number 1 free agent in a class that obviously isn't fantastic, but I still wanted to have some fun with some of the free agency content and rank the 94 best free agents in the 2024 NBA free agency class, you absolute NBA sickos.